Hey, out there in YouTube land. This is part 3 in this mix series with Unicorn Rodeo, and the name of the song is Maybe. I know what you're thinking. Third video and we haven't started mixing yet. Well, setup is probably the most important thing when it comes to this kind of stuff. Being organized, setup, and then when you do finally get down to the mix, you just want to be able to mix. You don't want to have to do all this stuff. So that's why I do it in separate stages. I usually set everything up that I've been showing you in these last few videos. I turn it off for a day. The next day, when my mind is right, I open it up when I can just really get down to the mix, and I go. But till then, we're still getting to that point. So, video number 3, let's dive in. Alright, here we are back in the box. We are really going to get down into the meat of how I mix things now. So I'm going to set up my effects rack, which I mix very old school. I have 3 reverbs, 2 delays, and a saturation plugin, and then my rear bus technique. And I use those like effects racks, like an old school analog board. If you have something that needs a room reverb, you send it to the room reverb, and everything that needs that reverb uses the same reverb. I have a room, I have a plate, and I have a vocal plate. Then I have a quarter delay, a half delay, and a saturation. So, and then the rear bus. So, let's just start with adding a few tracks. So, let's just go with add new track. You can also just double click, well, on most, but on this one, we are going to go step by step. So this will be rear bus. And on that, it is basically just the virtual tape machine. Virtual mix rack. And these 3 plugins. I have it saved in my virtual mix rack as rear bus comp. It's just effect compressor, the VCC bus, and a trimmer. And we're not really doing anything with this right now. We're just setting it up. So that's the rear bus. This one will be plate. This is basically my snare plate. So we open up Verb Suite Classics. As you can see right here, this drum verb. And then right there is my snare plate. Boom. So that one's set up. Add a new track. This will be my room reverb. Which is right here, the room 1, which is a CLA drum room. And now we need my vocal plate. So I just call this one verb because it's just an all-around like hot plate reverb that you would put on guitar, vocals, or anything like that. And that is the CLA vocal plate. All right, moving along. This one will be my quarter. And this is Repeater from Slate Digital's All Access Bundle. I have it saved as quarter. And as you can see, I have the color set pretty high to where, and then I have my feedbacks offset a little bit. It just gives it more spread. You can kind of check this out and copy it if you'd like. Moving right along, this will be our half. And it's also repeater. Just set, it's basically the same settings, it's just set longer. It's what I call my throw delay. So let's just call it, yeah, let's just leave that. Let's just call that throw. And one more, and that completes what I call my effects rack. This will be saturation. This is a free plugin by BPB Pro Audio. I go 20% tube, 20% tape, give a little bit of a low pass and a little bit of a high pass. And that is my tape saturation. So all of these, which are my effects, I put into a bus. I can name it effects rack. And then on that effects rack, so every one of these effects before it goes to out and to the 2 bus will go into this bus and be EQ'd. So I'm going to put infinity EQ on there. And that'll just be on the bus. And I cut everything below about 120. Everything above about 12K, 10K. And I like to give a bump around 1K for that snare drum pop, because that's where my plate's going to live, my plate reverb. So that way there's not any low end buildup in your effects also. You really should EQ your effects. Some people compress them, but with my rear bus, it's just a little much. So that being said, to show you just kind of how I use this, let's go to the drums. If you wanted to add this, I always add a plate reverb to my snare. It's just my sauce. All you do is just send it to plate. And then the amount of that reverb, I leave all of this exactly like it is. I control all of my effects from one knob right here. And it is a pre-fader send. I know there's a lot of easier ways to do it, but I'm old school. This is my plate reverb knob. It's just simple. Let's say I wanted to add it to the throw. All you do is send it to the throw. And that's how I use my effects rack. It is 3 reverbs, 2 delays, and a saturator, sent to a bus with an EQ, and then my rear bus technique. So that's how I use my effects rack. I am now going to put virtual tape machine on all of my tracks. How I do that is I have a Reaper script set up. I will show you. This is some Reaper magic. I go to virtual tape machine and I set it up how I want it to be on every track, which is 2-inch 16 track, 30 IPS right in the middle, and then I just put a 1 dB boost on it. Again, an actions menu. If you go to actions menu and you push find shortcut, I'm going to show you my shortcut. It's Control Insert. It will insert focused effects to the selected tracks, preserving parameters. So what that means is if I have this track open in focus, any track that I have, track or bus, that I have highlighted, here, we have to open all these up, get everything, because we are going to want virtual tape machine on literally the first insert of every track. So click the last track, go all the way to the one right before. Those are all highlighted. This being in focus now with that script, all I should have to do is push Control Insert, and it'll insert exactly this plugin, exactly how I have it set on every track that I want it set. So Control Insert, fingers crossed. Boom, and it worked. And it preserved our parameters. 2-inch 16-track FG9, 30 IPS, 1 dB boost. That being said, I put Virtual Tape Machine on my master at 15 IPS, half-inch, 2-inch track. And that'll be the last insert on my master bus. Go ahead and control and save that. Always save your work, even though Reaper auto saves every 5 seconds. Alright, so to set up my basically analog workflow, but I do it in the box because I don't have any outboard gear and don't really even want any. On the master, I have SSL, knee VQ, custom, a lift, and a trimmer at the start and at the end of the chain. That way I can attenuate any volume that these plugins make. Of course, tape machine last, virtual tape machine first. Now, on all of my buses, I want to put my bus setup in virtual mix rack, which I have saved right here, bus, which is just the bus, Brick K4, 4KE, VCC, SSL channel for the high pass, and the custom for the low pass. This is basically my bus channel strip, and this is my track channel strip. Only difference is the track VCC or the bus VCC. So right now we're setting up our buses. So I have it on that bus. I'm going to highlight all of my other buses. All right, now we bring what we want to add to those into focus, like this. And as we set up before, it is Control Insert. And it added my bus setup to all of my buses. Now, let's do the same thing for the tracks. Virtual mix rack, the track setting. Got my low cut, my high cut, everything looks good. Now we highlight every track that we want to add that to. Which is every track, not the buses. Buses are already taken care of. They've already been bused to the next town. Sorry, bus jokes. I know this takes a while, but adding all of these plugins to every individual track would take twice as long, so these scripts will save you time. And after you get them down, you will literally be able to just blaze through sessions when you're mixing. So that's all the tracks I want to add this to. I want to open up this is what I want to add. Should just be Control Insert. Oh, I'm sorry. Yep, Control Insert. That's it. Maybe. Asking a lot, it seems. And it worked. Now every track has my track set up with my EQs that I use on every track. Every track needs an EQ at some point. My buses are all set up with my bus. What I need now, it looks like my virtual tape machine didn't make it to the toms, which is easy. I'll show you how to drag and drop that, which is exactly how it sounds. You just drag the tape machine that you want to add, all set up nice like we had it. I could have drag and dropped this on every track, but I like to do it with just one click of a button, if possible. All right. As you can see, we got tape machine first, virtual mix rack on every bus, and virtual mix rack on every channel. Now, I would consider it's time to mix. And as you can see with all of those plugins, gotta up my buffer size. Let's go with 256 because I was set at 32 for tracking. That's one thing to consider when you're mixing big sessions. If you want to get a real deep into these plugins with their analog setup, I have a Ryzen 7 32 gigabytes of RAM, and let's see what we're doing. And this is just 2 plugins on every channel, and we have more than 50, around 60 tracks. So let's see what it makes my CPU do with all of those plugins. It looks like I'm using around 49%, and this is a nice system. I mean, it's 32 gigabytes of RAM, Ryzen 7, but as you can see, that's 2 plugins on every track, plus all of my effects rack, which is pretty heavy duty stuff, and all of this stuff on the master bus, which there will be a little bit more on that, but adding stuff to the master bus should be anything. I shouldn't have to add anything else to this session. There's no amp sims. I'm probably not going to use any triggers, and if I do, it'll be 1. So I would say in the next session, when I sit down, I can actually start to mix this track. Before we go, let's go ahead and get my rear bus set up. This is a technique that I learned by watching Andrew Sheps on the Mixing with Masters podcast and classes that I take and stuff like that. When he started mixing, he mixed on a board for movies, and it had a rear bus to make things sound like it was coming from behind you. That's how he started doing this. And he is a famous mixing producer, and I like having, this is what I call the undermix. So we add a send on every bus to the rear bus, and we leave that. This is the only send that'll be left on full. So we add that to every bus except for the drums. Now watch, I'll bring this down. We will set on these settings, you want the VCC and the compressor to be basically straight up at noon, and then you always want your trimmer to hit 0 on every track if you can. So I'm going to feather this in. You'll see me add it in right here. It's just really subtle. I'm going to toggle it on and off and show you. This is what I call the beginning of my undermix or my rear mix. It'll lay underneath the rest of the mix, and it just makes everything sound full. Watch when I turn it off. It's one of those things that you really won't miss it until it's gone. now I'm ready to mix. Come back in the next video and we're going to get down to business. Get with Uppercut, baby. Get knocked out.